From the insurer's perspective, that's something I guess you have to take up with whoever's writing insurance for you, what they're paying for.
It just seems like the layers become more complex, and a lot of it has to do with, the government interference too. And I'd like to see it simplified, and I think I'd be less stressed and a happier person and need less health care.
I'd be less stressed too. I'd be less stressed too.
Maybe we could take just a second, Mike, and I noticed Mike LaGrange snuck in the back door and thinks he's going to get off scot-free tonight. Maybe you could just stand up and the way we put John on the spot was, and kind of the rules of the game are, what issues are you dealing with in providing healthcare services to your customers and to your patients that frustrate you, and what would you like to see different?
Well, since I'm just new to the meeting and very late, I was
Well,
already.
you were working. You were out there making a living, so.
But
not at all.
if John's already spoken, John and I have talked about this, and I'm sure we are pretty much in agreement. So I don't want to repeat everything that John said, not knowing what he said. The chances are pretty good that I'll agree with John. Very seldom do I not. So.
All right. If not, you guys go
I
behind
think
the
he
bank
already
tonight.
represented pharmacy well, and rather than duplicate that,
All right.
I'm happy with
You
it.
said kind of playing with the farmers.
Go away from the LaGrange guy. Mike, go ahead. What was your question? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Say it, Mike.
Well, as far as paperwork, it's a great idea filling out your own paperwork, but we are a new employee, half the time we have to hound him to fill out his paperwork. So I got a feeling there'll be 80% of the people wouldn't fill out their paperwork. I mean, responsible people will, but there's a lot of people who will not do paperwork. It'd be a disaster.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to just ask a question or see what Bob thinks on this maybe. Of the 50 million people they say that are uninsured, do not have insurance, at least. There's what, about 50 million that say don't want to pay or aren't interested, they're a young group and they're fairly young, right? All right, now, I was wondering, and one of the arguments says, well, they need to be in there because they may get a car accident and then all the rest of us going to have to pay for it, or they may have also have cancer or something. What if they don't have to, and I can understand it, and I can understand people who don't want to force people to do anything, and some people think everyone ought to be in the system. Kind of a compromise in a way, I wonder if this is, maybe you don't like it, is that they might have to have catastrophic insurance, but not have insurance that covers the everyday thing. I've often thought that insurance should have been just for catastrophic, and not for Band-Aids and, maybe check your baby's ears out and, and things of that sort. And I just wonder, is that a viable idea or is it a bad idea?
Well, that used to be the norm. We bought hospitalization insurance, and when you went to the doctor, you paid him whatever it was that it cost. And you got prescription drugs, you paid for that. But as legislation goes, anytime our legislators take credit for including something, premiums have to go up. I mean, our lieutenant governor a few years ago pushed that mental health should be covered at 90-10 or 80-20 like any other sickness instead of 50-50. Tennessee would kind of agree that maybe that's okay. But by doing that, that cost comes back to the insurance company and then they pass it on in premium. So they can legislate anything that they want, be it birth control pills, or anything else. They can legislate that and say, we did this wonderful job to protect the people. Somebody's going to pay for it. And ends up being the people who are paying premiums. And I guess if you look at costs on that, I have, having done it for over 30 years, there isn't anything that surprises me, and there isn't anything I haven't seen. But when you have somebody who goes and is in that car accident, and somebody doesn't have car insurance, and then the cost is at a private hospital is $25,000–$30,000, but they quickly ship them as soon as they can down to U of I. Person runs up $190,000 worth of bills, and the U of I says the guy doesn't have any insurance, doesn't have any money. We're going to write it off. They write it off. You and me. We're not writing it off. Somebody's got to pay those people. It comes up our tax dollars because it's government funded. And I think that the other thing is, I I don't really believe that healthcare is a right. I think it's a responsibility. And that's just my personal feelings on it. But I don't know what these guys feel. And you're not gonna change my mind.
We're all personally shocked, Bob. That your mind isn't gonna change. I'd like to ask, I'm sorry, Al.
I have two comments. In the general conclusions that the questions that are being asked tonight and the comments that are being made, how many have read some of the statements that are in the bill? For instance, the question about Medicare and what will happen to it. Page 341, line 3 through 9, talks about what will happen to Medicare and all HMOs. Government has the authority to disqualify Medicare Advantage plans, HMOs, and etc., forcing all people into government plans.
I guess I'm going to play rule keeper here and try to keep us out of the weeds on this. The reality is we don't have a bill. I mean, that's the reality. You're talking about HR 3200,
That's right.
which I have it on my Kindle. I've actually read the darn thing. But there's also the Senate bill, which is 400 pages less. And then there's 3 sub-bills in the Senate and 1 alternative in the House. The reality is that the kind of discussions, we could all go around and around and around all night on this. We just don't know what's in it.
He asked the question about the 46 million people.
Right.
The health care will provide to all non-U.S. citizens, illegal and otherwise.
Yeah, but
That is part of the 46 million people.
But that's still just in a proposed bill, it's not in the final legislation. I
Understand?
mean, what's gonna be in the final legislation, I think is a result of community meetings like this. Hopefully, you're learning something and we're not wasting our time. I'm hoping we're not wasting our time. So you have some thoughts on when you call your congressmen and your legislators and beat on their door. They may or may not be responsive. If you read articles I had in the paper, you know where I fall down on whether they're responsive or not. But it's our only option. Our only option as citizens is to participate, call, write editorials, knock on doors. I mean, that's the only thing we can do as citizens. Where we get caught up is if we just sit back and do nothing. I did have one question. I hate doctors. I like you. I like Shane. I like the pretty girls that you're getting through for PAs. So I like you. But I don't want to come see you. So what I noticed for me is that when you saw me 2 weeks ago, I walked through the door at 90 degrees, bent over in pain because I delayed it 2 or 3 days, and I should have been there a lot earlier. But the point is, when I walk through the door, I'm cared for, and I'm never fearful in this community, whether I'm seeing Mike or John or you folks, on whether or not you're going to look at me and say, you know, Bill, I just don't have time. Why don't you come back in 2 weeks? With some of the stuff that's being talked about and some of the things you're dealing with today, do you have concerns that those kinds of things will change or have the opportunity to change in the future? Or do you think, regardless of how this all shakes out, if I'm stupid enough to let my diverticulitis go an extra day or two and I now can't stand and I hobble through the door, you're going to be able to say, yeah, come on in, there's a place for you to go and we'll take care of you?